Cold air, leaves falling. The wind whispered secrets through the branches, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. Eleanor stood before the Victorian house, grand but imposing. Its towering structure loomed over her, casting long shadows in the fading light. A shiver ran down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, even though she was alone. It was a fresh start, a new chapter. She hoped this move would bring peace and a sense of belonging. Little did she know, it was the beginning of a nightmare. Boxes piled up inside, each one a reminder of the life she left behind. Dust swirled in the dim light. The house seemed to breathe, exhaling years of neglect and secrets. The air was heavy, filled with the scent of decay. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like a ghostly whisper. Eleanor unpacked, each item a tiny piece of normalcy in this strange new place. She tried to make it feel like home, despite the unease that lingered. She tried to ignore the whispers in the nearby town. Stories of the house, stories of disappearances. The villagers' eyes followed her with a mix of pity and fear. Just silly superstitions, she told herself. But deep down, she couldn't help but wonder if there was some truth to the tales. "You be careful in that house, Mrs. Hemmings from the bakery," had warned. Her voice trembled slightly, as if the very mention of the house brought back unsettling memories. Her voice was low, her eyes filled with a mixture of pity and fear. It was as if she knew something that Eleanor didn't, something that couldn't be easily explained. Eleanor had brushed it off. "Oh, Mrs. Hemmings, you know how these small towns are, full of stories and gossip." She'd always been a skeptic, never one to believe in superstitions or ghost stories. She laughed, but the sound felt hollow even to her own ears. Deep down, a small part of her wondered if there was any truth to the old woman's words. But as the days turned into nights, the house seemed to close in on her. The once charming old house now felt like a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Every creak of the floorboard, every rustle of leaves outside the window sent shivers down her spine. She found herself jumping at the slightest sound, her nerves on edge. The house was never truly silent. There was always a faint noise, a distant echo that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. There was always a presence, a feeling of being watched. It was as if the walls themselves had eyes, observing her every move, waiting for her to let her guard down. She found an old photograph of the house with its previous owners. Their faces were stern, almost as if they were warning her too. The more she looked, the more she felt a connection to the past, a past that refused to stay buried. In an attempt to bring some warmth and light into the house, she lit candles. But the flickering light only seemed to deepen the shadows, making the house feel even more alive with unseen forces. Whispers began to fill the air, soft and unintelligible, but unmistakably there. Eleanor could no longer deny it. The house was trying to tell her something, and she was terrified to find out what it was. It started subtly, a faint scratching sound coming from the walls. Eleanor dismissed it at first, mice perhaps, or the old house settling. The scratching grew louder, more insistent. It seemed to follow her from room to room, a constant, unsettling rhythm. One night she woke to a new sound, whispers, soft at first, then growing louder. They seemed to be coming from the wall, from the scratching. Driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity, Eleanor began peeling back the wallpaper. She had always felt an eerie presence in the room, but today, something compelled her to uncover the truth hidden beneath the layers. It was old, brittle, and came off easily, almost as if it wanted to reveal its secrets. Underneath, she found something more terrifying, a list of names. Names that seemed to whisper stories of the past, scrawled in a faded ink. Each name represented a life lived, a story untold. The ink, though faded, held a sinister energy. Her blood ran cold as she saw it, her name. It was there among the others, staring back at her, at the bottom of the list, freshly written. The ink looked disturbingly fresh, as if someone had just added it moments ago, as if the ink was still drying. The realization hit her like a cold wave, sending shivers down her spine. Who had written it, and why? The whispers grew louder, more urgent. The scratching intensified, vibrating through the very bones of the house. Eleanor backed away from the wall, her heart pounding in her chest. A crack appeared in the wall, right next to her name. It widened, spiderwebbing across the plaster. Then a skeletal hand, its bony fingers reaching out, burst through. "Join us," the whispers hissed, their voices a chorus of the damned. The hand grabbed Eleanor, its grip vice-like. She screamed, a desperate, strangled sound swallowed by the walls. Then silence. The house stood still, the whispers gone. Weeks later, a new tenant moved in. He was young, full of hope, oblivious to the house's dark history. As he unpacked, he heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from the walls. He paused, listening. A chill ran down his spine. He was not alone.